This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have 2:30 on the dot, so let's go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to the February Motorist Modernization Phase 2 Advisory Board meeting. As a reminder, this public meeting is recorded, and we'd like to ask that if you're not speaking, to please turn your microphones on mute. Starting with the roll call of the advisory board members, Stephen,
Here.
Britt,
Lieutenant Britt's here.
thank you, Diane.
Present.
Hi, Diane. Jay,
I'm here.
first on the line. Okay,
Can't
Lisa.
hear you, Kristen. Keep going in and out.
Steve Birch on the line. Lisa,
I'm here.
Sherry,
Sherry is here.
Sergeant Joseph. Sergeant Joseph on the line. Well, it still looks like we have a quorum of 5 members, so we will proceed. Let's start with the review of the last month's meeting minutes. Rachel?
Good afternoon, everyone. The last meeting was held on January 20th. The December 15th meeting minutes were reviewed and approved. There was no stakeholder outreach update at the meeting. Janice Timmons presented a Phase 1 and Phase 2 financial review. Nathan Johnson began the Phase 2 project updates on page 1, and this continued on page 2. There was a brief Phase 2 communications update presented by Coral Griggs. There were no questions or concerns from members present, and at the top of page 3, you can see the items that are distributed in a meeting packet prior to the meeting.
Are there any comments, questions, or corrections to the meeting minutes? None. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Jay.
Say all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You oppose, same sign. Okay. I'm sorry. All right, we'll mark these as approved. Next item on the agenda, I just have a very brief stakeholder outreach update on behalf of Terrence Samuel, our director. He wanted me to let you know that on January 26th, he and our Chief Technology Officer, Chad Hutchinson, provided a presentation to the Florida Senate Committee on Transportation. So he just wanted me to let you guys know that that meeting was conducted and an overview of the modernization program was provided. All right, next item on the agenda, moving into the Phase 2 program update. We'll start first with a financial review. Janice?
Good afternoon, everyone. This financial update is as of the end of January, so January 31st. And we always include Phase 1, although there's no changes since we're in implementation and going live. But our overall total was $37.3 million. And I'm not going to go through each of those, but Phase 2, the LBR request for this fiscal year for 2020, 2021 was $9.8 million. Our Phase 2 total budget broken out, contracted services account for 77% of that, OCO less than 1%, IV&V services at 4%, and our expenses at 19%. And our expenditures by month, you can see we're pretty consistent with the way we spend the contracted services each month. Right now, for January, we don't expect, well, we didn't have any IVMB services. We are in the process of reviewing the last month's report, so we're going to be catching up with that. So you'll see probably a double payment during either February or March. And then our budget versus actual for the month of January, our fiscal year to date again is 9.8. Month to date or budget to date, so July through January is 4.2. We actually spent 4.1, which is less than a 1% variance, and our remaining funds are 5.7 million, and those will be spent before the end of the fiscal year. Are there any questions on that quick financial review?
All right, thanks, Janice. Before we go to the next agenda, I see in the chat that Steve Birch has joined us. So Steve, welcome. We will make sure that we capture your attendance at today's meeting.
Thank you, Kristen. I apologize.
No problem. No worries at all. Next item, the project updates. Nathan, are you on the line?
I am. Good afternoon, everyone. We have a stoplight report. Two different pictures here. One is for milestone C. So for milestone C, Team B, the MV Globals team, has completed their milestone C development. So they're fully working on milestone D functionality, which is additional inventory functions. I'll talk a little bit about what's in these milestones and the work the teams have accomplished here in a minute. Team A is continuing to work on milestone C functionality, almost finished with their work on the original registration transaction as far as the refinement, and then working through the development and testing. Andrea, can you talk about the portal and fleet?
I can. Thank you, Nathan. So my DMV portal is currently working on milestone C stories. We are currently doing the motor vehicle records request. The development has been done. We're just waiting for the testing to be completed. The development team is currently working on bulk transcripts and downloads. And we're ending our sprint on Thursday of this week. Any questions about my DMV portal? Thanks.
Okay, thanks. I'll spend just a minute talking about teams A and B. The reason I'm going to mention this is that one of the things that we're changing is we're adding some additional refinement meetings. Back when we did requirement gathering, we had titles as a separate team from registrations. Those groups have been working together during this last year on the core solution as part of Team A, and we're adding some additional refinement meetings to speed up the pace of refinement so that we can keep pace with the development that we need to do. So we're having meetings, some will be targeted toward titles and some that are targeting toward registration. Those will be happening in parallel, but feeding the same development team, Team A, to work on what's coming next. So after the foundational work that team has done, they're going to be working on, we're going to start accelerating by working on different transactions that are pulling from both the titles and the registration backlog. So up to this point, you know, what this team, what both of these teams have accomplished in Orion, teams A and B, is that we built the original, the new Orion module, the MV issuance module, which includes the homepage, alerts, and the new BOLO functionality. We've built the customer inquiry for both individuals and businesses. Businesses had not really been a concept that we had done in phase one of Orion development. So there's a lot of work to get that done. And as well as the customer summaries, the customer records themselves for individuals and businesses. We built the vehicle summaries for all vehicle subtypes. And I'm just walking through some of the foundational stuff that we've built so far. The transaction launcher and the base transaction workflow with eligibility rules. And then in milestone B, we completed the original title transaction for both new and used vehicles, which allowed us to create and update vehicles and owners, create and update customers, collect the third-party information like couriers and people that walk in dealer work, which is additional functionality. Title data, including liens and brands, stops, and actually printing out title certificates. And we implemented NMVIDIS check rules with an eye toward actually building the NMVIDIS interface to the new NMVIDIS specs later this year. So that's the only piece of the original title that wasn't done. And then a lot of those same screens and functionalities were leveraged as part of the milestone that they're currently working on for original registration, with the addition of registration records, the registration owners, insurance information, and actually printing out registrations with decals. So those are all the foundational pieces that will be built on as we move forward for the balance of the transactions, which is one of the reasons why we should be able to accelerate from a development standpoint, but we're adding some additional refinement meetings to the schedule. Okay, so if we could flip to, we have a couple of slides. Okay, first for IAP, Scott.
Nathan, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yes, IAP, we are in our first milestone, milestone A, sprint 1. We're working on a lot of the features for the service endpoints and the single sign-on solution. So we'll give you updates as we start. Today was our first sprint planning day, and most of the planning was around those endpoints to stand them up so Celtic can code against and then provide the features that they offer to our product owners. So it was a really good day that we've worked for IFTA, that is. We're still doing some of the JAD sessions for the PVD related to IRP. So we're going to have a very tight schedule in the next couple months, but I'm proud of the teams where we are today. Over deliverables, you'll see that there's quite a few listed. I want to make sure we had what was on target for the next 30, 60 days. But two of the items I'd like to review is deliverable 6, the COT system, technical architecture design. It is in the second round review. As of 2/16 is our due date for completion, but we are already on our second round back to the vendor, and we should be wrapping that up, if not on time, sooner. And the other item that from our last meeting, we had the software configuration design for the IFTA requirements, which is the PVD, the product that the Celtic says they're going to code their system against. We had that approved at the end of January. So that's a great stride forward to allow us to start to develop. Important activities, January, February, we've got to make ready those blueprint backlog requirements for the Orion interfaces. Developers may have some concerns if we can't get them to them, and we've got a risk we'll talk about later. Then, of course, finalize the IFTA interface design specs. Now that we've got the requirements out of the way, we've got to have both sides of the system talking to each other, and that's the interface specs, which you'll notice that it's part of the deliverable 7 that was listed up there that we didn't review, and we've got till April to complete that. One of the key dependencies assumptions that we have, along with sharing those resources for other initiatives like phase 1, is those infrastructure resources being available at the key times to alleviate delays in environment setup, and then of course code configuration updates, pushes to these environments. So this is some of the items that we'll be watching as Celtic makes their code available, making sure we're able to get it to dev test promoted quickly. We're tracking from a risk and issue perspective. No issues at the project level at this point that we're communicating up to the program level. We've got 3 project risks. Number 13, the lack of availability of key OMM resources. We've got some members still supporting phase 1. From a strategic perspective, I think we're keeping ahead of that risk and mitigating that. Risk 82, if the IRP vendor development access to highway safety motor vehicle development endpoints from their development environment to our development environment, making sure that they have a seamless connectivity. And so there were some concerns brought up there that we're working out under that risk. And then of course, risk number 86, delay in refinement if the IRP backlog impacting requirements or development. If we don't have those requirements signed off and ready for developers, we will have that delay. You'll notice that the scope and schedule is showing yellow from the standpoint of the entire backlog is not refined, but we're staying ahead of that risk number 86, but we want to indicate that the scope is yellow, but everything else is indicating green as we're moving forward. Any questions? If no questions, no chat, back to you, Nathan.
Okay, next we have Florida Smart ID, Joe. I'm not able to hear Joe.
Me neither.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
We can, thanks.
Sorry about that. So good afternoon. As I was saying, we are continuing to move forward with UAT for Florida Smart ID. We actually were able to download the iOS mobile DL from the App Store this last week, which is a big step forward for the team to actually be able to get the applications from the store instead of sideloading them. So that's good news. We will be next started the testing and the training on the iOS verifier next week. And that will be the last application that we'll begin that testing on. So we are, like I said, well underway with UAT. You see the risk there related to UAT, risk 79. We originally had a 10-day window for UAT. Obviously, that's been expanded with the several schedule changes we've had. We're just keeping an eye on that just from a maintenance perspective. Risk 83 is related to support, and we have met with Thales to explain to them what the Florida position is on support. For issue 25, the stores I mentioned that we're finally able to download at least the iOS from the store. Still working with Google. Google is reviewing the applications that were submitted by Thales before they approve them to be released in the store. So once that happens, we'll be able to download those from the store as well. We did meet with Thales to discuss the store setup and how different vendors would be able to display their product specifically and explain why their product should be chosen among the devices that will be available in the Florida storefront. Issue 26. Excuse me one second. All right, sorry about that. And then issue 26, FSID comms concerns. We've met with both legal and with Thales to go through the concerns that were raised by the communications teams, specifically around some of the legal requirements related to liability when we do the pilot event. So the legal team is going to work on a liability release form to be used during the pilot. As I mentioned, we did talk to Thales about the storefront. That was one of the other concerns. And I think we kind of outlined what the responsibilities are, both from a Florida perspective as well as a vendor perspective for putting the apps into the store and then marketing those apps within the store and within the storefront itself. So the teams continue to make progress. The next big thing for the team will be to close out UAT and begin the load and performance test the week of the 22nd of February to keep us on target for the 5th of March is when we will do a demonstration, that last deliverable, before we have our pilot release. Any questions for Florida Smart ID? Thank you.
Okay, next for ECM, Ian, are you on to give this update? If not, I can give the update. For ECM, this is under the umbrella of phase 2. The team is working on the conversion routine. So we kicked off development of some interfacing code that will read from the existing data store and move it over into the to the new data store. So that started, we're about one sprint in, so a couple of weeks into that effort. I think Ian may have dropped and come back. Is there anything in addition to that?
Note that's it. We're just continuing, as you said, with the sprint, and we have one other developer that's coming on with us as well to assist with the API integration as well. So everything is going smooth right now.
All right, Nathan, any other project updates?
That's all I have unless there's questions.
This is Lisa. It seems that the package that I received has an updated IFTA IRP project update. Can that be emailed to us, the slide that was shown?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next item, communications update. Cora, I believe you have a brief update for the group.
Yes, thank you, Kristen. As you heard Joe talk about, comms is working a lot with Florida Smart ID. So today we are supposed to receive our final approval on the materials that we will be using for those external events. In the next week or so, we'll be hosting virtual kickoff events and meet and greets with the external retailers who will be participating with us in pilot. And then we are also going to do a kickoff sometime in mid-March with the pilot participants internally as well as FHP members to start piloting the app itself. And that's all.
All right, those are all the agenda items we have for you today, but I would like to open the floor for any questions or comments from the advisory board members and the general public. Any questions or comments?
Was that March kickoff, was that the demo that you were talking about with the Florida Smart ID?
So I was specifically relaying the pilot that we're going to host. So there's internal members who have been pre-selected that will be part of simulated sessions where we will be using the verifier and the app itself to test it before we go to external retailer participants.
Listen, let's call. I want to ask if it's possible, maybe at the next month's meeting, if an update could be provided on the bulk title and registration transaction functionality for license plate agencies. This was discussed at the South Florida visit that the department had with the private title agencies, and there have been several other times when it's been discussed, and just to give an update on where we are and what's being planned.
Carl, I think we're having a really hard time hearing you.
Okay.
Would you mind repeating that? It sounds really muffled. I don't know about everybody else.
Sure.
No, I caught bulk title registrations.
Give me just a second here. Okay, can you hear me better?
No.
No.
We're still having. Kristen, I will send it. I will call you and make my.
All right, no problem.
Okay.
I think I understood enough that I think Carl's wanting an update on the bulk title and registration transactions.
Correct, for license plate agencies.
For the LPAs.
Okay, all right. Okay, you said maybe we could give that at the next meeting. Was your request?
Yes, if possible.
Okay, all right. I'll discuss that with Terrence, and we'll get back with you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa, for translating.
Yes, thank you, Lisa.
See, Carl, I've been around you so long, I can translate for you.
Are there any other questions? All right, so if hearing none, we will adjourn this meeting today, and we'll see you next month. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye-bye, everyone.